Kate Hardcastle is consumer and retail expert at Insight with Passion, which offers services to help transform and rejuvenate businesses. Afternoon to you, Kate. Lovely to have you with us. And I guess we sort of knew this was coming.
Yes, but it's true to say also that we can't just look at this as being an outcome of the lockdown and the 12 weeks that non-essential stores were closed. John Lewis certainly had issues before then, but I think it's probably the right time to start realising some of the things that we've been saying for a while are very true, that if we see a significant amount of movement to online sales, if we see a heightened amount of competition in the marketplace, and we see generally a more savvy consumer looking to buy other things with their money rather than just stuff that they want to buy travel, or they become more increasingly aware of their spend and want to cut back, then we are going to have a challenge with the way that high streets and retail operated. And many of them have been doing what they've been doing for years. And just as you sit there in a radio studio, you've just described lots of changes from how you might have broadcast 10, 15 years ago. Just like your industry, retail has to evolve too. And have they evolved quickly enough? Have they made changes quickly enough? A lot of them no.
Yeah, and it's interesting, as you are more than aware, Kate. I mean, this debate about the high street we've been having for many years before a global pandemic. This may well have accelerated something, but as you alluded to at the beginning, there's a wider discussion to have here anyway.
Completely. Could all of those retailers that were in the marketplace have their cake and eat it whilst you were seeing this heightened use of online? Could you imagine that everyone could have multiple branches, for instance, like the coffee store brands? And we've just heard news about Burger King today. You might have seen 2 or 3 of those brands in city centres. Could that sheer amount of the weight of brands out there and the retailers and people who needed us to spend with them in big numbers to survive, could they all survive when there was heightened competition in the marketplace? Absolutely not. There had to be change. And I think too many of those brands have been too slow on the uptake to evolve. Interestingly, I was in a conference earlier this week talking about how we will see transformation between bricks and mortar stores into digital, and what will that look like, and how will that evolve, and how can you make that spectacular? And one of the points I made is we can't just focus on spectacular right now. We've got to focus on some of the basics. Some of these brands will have had issues with the fact that the customers will have come in and just found it to be a very typical, very similar environment and experience they've had for years, like 9 to 5:30 existence, and they want more than that.
Yeah, and John Lewis, by the way, John Lewis is one of my favourite shops. I love a little mooch around John Lewis, and it does seem to have sort of, if you go to one of the big ones, it sort of has everything there, and you can check out the tech and the everything from tech to towels, crockery to lamps, you know, the whole, everything is there. But of course the digital world is not going away. It's intensifying, and much of the mood music today, Kate, seems to be that not necessarily because of coronavirus, but certainly what coronavirus did do was it increased our chances of joining the digital revolution and going online. And people realise, well, you know, if something arrives, we can send it back. It's often free to send back, so what's not to like?
Look, there's so many things going on here. Heightened consumer rights when you buy online. So you actually have more rights when you're buying online than in store. The fact that brands like John Lewis, I'm glad you've had a great experience, but perhaps their stores weren't actually rallying on all of the things they were out there to offer the customer. They had a heightened presence in terms of price that was meant to be underwritten by a guarantee of service and knowledge and experience of store. But we actually found out that they were removing staff from the stores, like a lot of branches had to do of other brands as well, and therefore was everyone getting that customer service hand-holding that you would expect from those partners.
Sure.
If you also think about the changing environment of how price-oriented we've become and how easy it is to showroom and look for other brand comparisons. And then we think about John Lewis as a quandary, this kind of idea of never knowing the undersold. So the race to the bottom on price, as we've seen more and more retailers turn to discount to keep going. And then how do you then reinvest in stores and keep that more premium experience going? I mean, there's so much going on out there. And then we start talking about the psychology of how we shop. We've just had 12 weeks in lockdown. Have you gone through your wardrobes at home thinking, I don't need all this stuff, I'm not going to buy any more clothes? Have you had a throw out of some things in your home going, actually, I've got too much stuff, I'm not going to buy anything this year? Those are conversations that consumers are having, alongside having the emotional concern that we're going to have the worst recession in 300 years. So guess what happens? The appetite for spending just disappears. I mean, this is so much more.
We've kind of rewired our brains a little bit in this respect. I mean, it's had a curious knock-on effect into all manner of other areas. Listen, Kate, great to have you on with us. Thank you. That's Kate Hardcastle. Kate is consumer and retail expert at Insight with Passion. They offer services to help transform and rejuvenate businesses.